What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Ryan Meyer's Expeditions. Today we've got something really cool for you guys. We're going to teach you how to go spearfishing in the Bahamas, and we're also going to do our first giveaway on this channel in honor of the Bahamas opening up for tourism this week, and it's going to be the new Headhunter Predator Roller. Now this thing is freaking sexy. I have used the Predator regular version for years. It's been my primary spear of choice. You're going to see a ton of its use in this video right here, and he just came out with the roller version. I cannot wait to use this thing myself, and in honor of the Bahamas, you guys are going to get a chance to win. All you've got to do is subscribe to my channel, subscribe to the Headhunter Spearfishing channel, and leave a comment down below on what you want to shoot with this thing. We're going to do the drawing next week on Monday the 22nd, and we'll let you guys know who wins. But for now, let's get into the video. We're going to go over gear, how to find fish, basic hunting techniques, basic shooting techniques, shark management, and how to avoid getting ciguatera. Even if you're not planning a trip to the Bahamas this year, a lot of this information carries over to anywhere in the world. But first, what makes me qualified to teach you guys about the Bahamas? Well, there's literally been years where I've spent more days in the Bahamas than I have in the United States. I've spearfished every single major island all the way down through the islands, and I've put clients and myself on multiple world record fish. I work really hard on these videos to bring you guys high quality content for free, so go ahead and smash that like button and then we'll get started. The first step for spearfishing the Bahamas is equipment. Now, you're not allowed to use spear guns over there, so that means a pole spear or a Hawaiian sling. But that does not mean one of those little yellow 3-prongs from West Marine. If you got the time and you've invested the money to make it across to the Bahamas, be sure and invest in a high quality pole spear with a slip tip, something light, flexible, carbon, fiberglass, something high quality. Headhunter makes some phenomenal lighter pole spears. I really like them a lot. Do not go and get one of those giant aluminum pole spears. It's difficult to load, difficult to hunt with, and you'll end up spending more time with a hurt hand trying to hold this thing, trying to hunt properly, trying to swing it through the water column. I highly recommend going over with multiple pole spears and a Hawaiian sling. Headhunter also makes by far the best sling on the market with their new Gorilla sling. I personally do not love it with the reel setup. I like it just simply rigged with a sling, free shaft. I can shoot at fish. People always ask me, do you like a pole spear or a Hawaiian sling? And the answer is I use both all throughout the day. My good rule of thumb is if I want to land fish, I use a pole spear with a slip tip. If I want to have fun and I'm in shallow water, I will absolutely shoot that Hawaiian sling, take long shots at fish, and have an absolute blast. Whatever you decide to bring over there, make sure you have spare rigging for all of it. You need extra bands, extra slip tips, extra rubber bands. Whatever is required to keep your pole spears running, bring it. Because once you get over there, there's absolutely nothing that you can get while you're there. Regulations can change in the Bahamas, so be sure when you're checking in to ask your customs agents which fish are in season and how much of what you're allowed to take. What doesn't change though is scuba spearing is absolutely illegal and no spear guns of any kind. So now you're in the Bahamas, you know the rules, you've got high quality equipment. Where do you go spearfishing? We are so lucky in the Bahamas to have crystal clear water and tons of reef structure. So that can be a little bit overwhelming for where to go. One of your absolute best friends in the world is Google Earth. Get on there before you get on the water and browse around and look at the different reef structures that are close to wherever it is your boat will be staying. I like to go on there and take a bunch of points off of Google Earth and put them onto my phone GPS or into my boat GPS and have different clusters of points depending on where I am and where I'm gonna run. I always like to have varied types of points, which means I might run 5 miles away from my port and I'll have a couple coral heads marked right there. And then I'll have maybe an outer section where maybe in the 30-40 foot section I can see little ledges or different types of structure. And then maybe a little bit deeper in the 60-70 foot section, I'll have a handful of more points out there on whatever structure I can see in that deeper water. And I'll do that for north and south of where I'm planning on staying. And I'll do that out 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles, in different clusters. And I know it's really flat, it's a nice day, I'll run that 25-mile cluster. I'll get there, I'll check a couple points. If it's not good, I'll check another cluster. If I'm there on the coral heads and there's no fish on the coral heads shallow, I'll run out to the 30-40 foot stuff. If there's nothing there, maybe I'll go a little deeper. you're constantly moving around to try and find the area that has fish. We're so lucky in the Bahamas to have crystal clear water. Now what that means is you can drag using the boat and you can find different spots. There are times I go to the Bahamas and I don't even let go of the back of the boat until I see the fish that I want to shoot. That works really good for finding schools of hogs, finding black groupers, finding yellowfin groupers, especially in that little bit deeper water where the boat and you don't necessarily scare them. Key with dragging is obviously watch out for that prop. Maybe get a ski handle. They work really well to hold on to. And a lot of times you can put one on either side of the boat and drag two people. If you're driving the boat, a really good rule is to never ever go in reverse. And it's your job to navigate the divers to the better areas of the reef. Also, slower is almost always better. When you're in the boat driving, you think you're going really slow, but really you want to be on idle. If you've got multiple engines, a lot of times it's only a one engine tow. What makes this really efficient is to use the currents also to cover ground. Don't tow against the current, tow with the current, tow with the waves. If you've done your work ahead of time properly, then your boat GPS will have a bunch of points that you took from Google Earth, and the boat captain can simply go from point to point to point, looking and finding those good areas. What's really cool about this is once you've been out for your first day in an area that you've never been to, and you found fish on these different points, go back to Google Earth, look at what they look like from the sky, and then find more like them. You can find those same type of points further away, or you can find even more right around the one that you were on. I've speared almost every major island in the Bahamas and rarely been back to the same ones again. Because of that, I'm always having to find new fish. These techniques right here are the way that consistently, if I've never been to a spot before, I can always find fish. Those GPS points I just showed you are points that I actually speared on our last trip to the Bahamas. You can see from the surface here how nondescript this looks. This is very small relief from the sky. You would be very difficult to see this because of the coloration, but when you get down, you can see these big giant holes, and these are the type of things that hold fish that fewer people are likely to find. And you can go out here and you can mark thousands of these things, and literally every single day of your trip dive a new spot. One of those points we showed you is actually the same exact reef that Sam shot this giant yellowfin grouper on. Again, you can see from the sky how it doesn't look like much, but that kind of cheesecloth bottom that's got a ton of holes in it holds a lot of fish. So once you found these fish, it's important to hunt them with proper technique. There are so many fish over there, and they are so easy to shoot that you're tempted just to swim down and chase after your fish and shoot it. And that's fine if you're a complete beginner, and that will work. You will put fish on the boat. But to get those higher quality trophy fish, to get higher quality shots on these fish, you've got to hunt properly. And what that means is going down to the bottom and waiting for those fish to approach you and getting those higher percentage shots that you're much more likely to stone your fish, not ruin any meat, and not attract any sharks. When you find your fish, depending on what it is, you can spend a lot of time on the surface waiting, breathing up, relaxing. He's not going anywhere. You can see him. He's sitting there on this coral head. He's sitting there on his ledge. He's not going to go anywhere until you scare him. So when you descend, go down very slowly. Get to the bottom. Settle in. Adjust your spear to be in the position you want. Have it already preloaded before you get to the bottom. And then either attract him over to you with some subtle dusting, some subtle grunting, or crawl over to him, especially if he's a grouper and he's not likely to come to you. Crawl over to him and then get the shot on a fish that's looking at you, turning sideways, or slowly leaving you. When you're hunting over there, remember that there are a lot of fish around. Not all of them are your targets. There's just a lot of other life on these reefs. Try to hunt everything on the reef. Don't think of it as you're just hunting that one grouper, because if you scare the small angelfish or the small snapper or pufferfish or whatever it is that's between you and that grouper, the grouper's gonna spook too. There's some really basic shooting techniques that'll help you shoot and land more fish. These primitive weapons, the pole spear and the Hawaiian sling, are not that powerful. You unfortunately only have the amount of energy that you can store with one hand holding it, whether it's a sling or a pole spear. Because of that, you've got to do everything you can to maximize the energy transfer that you're putting into that spear. For a pole spear, that means twisting it so you don't get a bend in it, and that also means not shooting with a floppy wrist. You want to make sure your arm is fully extended and it fires out and all that energy is transferred out. For a sling, that means you're pulling it back and you're holding it and you're releasing it with as much force as you can give it. Remember, the range with this primitive gear is pretty small. You're really looking at 3 to 4 feet and even less if you're looking for those precise stone shot. One of the big fears everybody has with spearfishing in the Bahamas is the sharks, and it's a real danger. There's been a number of attacks, especially in the last few years. There are some ways that we can mitigate the risks from sharks while spearfishing. One of those is to hunt together as a team. Basically, the quicker you get that fish from injured to the boat, the less chance that a shark is gonna come, the less commotion he causes, the less blood he loses in the water. We do that by working as a team, and as soon as someone shoots a fish, everybody is working to get that fish to the boat. If a fish gets stuck in a rock, that's one of the most dangerous situations, and the buddy needs to immediately be going down and trying to get that fish out of the rocks. While he's sitting there, he's grunting, he's dusting up the whole area, he's bleeding, he's making a lot of commotion, and that is what the sharks cue in and come and attack. One of the ways to get those fish on the boat as quick as possible is high quality shots. If you can stone your fish, or if you can shoot it and get it up on a single dive, that's one of the most important things you can do to risk your exposure to sharks. Try not to take shots out there that are Hail Marys, and be really especially careful with Nassau groupers. They're known to always be sitting very close to their hole, and when they get in a hole, especially with the amount of line that you kind of give them on a slip tip, a lot of times it's extremely difficult to get them out, and they are masters of attracting the sharks. They go in there, they dust, they grunt, they bleed, they make a lot of noise, and they seem to really attract those sharks from far away. Sharks aren't naturally aggressive. They weren't born knowing the sound of a spear hitting the rocks. We taught them that as spearfishermen. So, places with a lot of spearfishermen have a lot more well-trained sharks. Those are going to be your most aggressive sharks. Those are going to be the ones that come in after you shoot a single fish or after even just a sling shaft hits the rocks. Another great way to mitigate that is to run a little further. Get off the beaten path, stay away from those passes and the coral heads nearby the port, stay away from dirty water and shallow water. That gives you a lot less space between you and the shark. Also, if you've shot a few fish in an area, consider moving. The more fish, the more blood, the more commotion that happens in one small zone, the more likely the sharks are going to come in. Shark shields are another great tool to help you, especially after you get a fish rocked up in a hole. A lot of times we'll keep just one on a boat, and then whenever you get a big grouper or something stuck in a hole and the shark starts to come around, or even before they come around, turn that thing on, drop it on top of the fish or on top of the rock where the fish is, and it'll give you a little boundary where hopefully the sharks will stay away. Guys, comment down below with your craziest shark encounter. Doesn't have to be from the Bahamas, can be from anywhere in the world. Last but not least, ciguatera. So you may have heard of this, but it's a toxin that's found in reef fish in warm climates. The Bahamas is known to have some of it. It's not ripe with it. You can usually avoid it by just following a few simple steps. Because ciguatera is a toxin that bioaccumulates up the food chain and is more dense in older fish, we can avoid it by eating the younger fish. Now, younger fish do not always correlate with size. A 10-pound black grouper is not as old as a 10-pound tiger grouper. And that's really, really important and something that makes that fish identification super, super important, guys. Because your black grouper, your tiger grouper, and your yellowfin grouper all look very similar, especially in that smaller size, and that's a lot of times what gets people in trouble. A 10-pound black grouper is a really, really young fish. That fish might grow to be 100+ pounds. A 10-pound tiger grouper is a really old fish. They only grow to 15, 18 pounds. So those are notorious for having ciguatera. I try really, really hard to only eat fish at maybe 50% of their max weight. So that means maybe 10-pound hogs are okay, 10-pound muttons are okay, 15-pound yellowfins, 40-ish pound black groupers, and smaller cuberas, 10, 20-pound cubera snapper. It's also important to understand that where a fish lives on the reef kind of has to do with his level of ciguatera. So a mutton snapper and a dog snapper may look the same and may get to a relatively same size, but a dog snapper never leaves his reef. He lives on a hole, he lives there forever. So he is much more likely to have a higher level of ciguatera than, say, a mutton snapper of the same size, which spends a lot of time out on the sand and out on the grass flat. Certain islands and certain areas of certain islands are also known to have a lot more ciguatera than others, and that's something that you can really only find out when you go over and talk to the locals. These rules are really, really conservative, but it's how I've managed to avoid ciguatera for my friends, clients, and family for many, many years of hunting the Bahamas. There's so many delicious fish species over there to eat that fall well within my requirements. You can eat 5 to 7 pound hogs all day long, 10-pound muttons, all of the 10-pound blacks and yellowfin groupers that you can find. And realistically, those are some of the best eating fish on the reef. But I know a lot of us like to go over there and we like to trophy hunt. We're looking for those big cuberas. We're looking for those dog snappers, those big black groupers. And honestly, the locals over there, it's their fish anyways. You guys are going over there, you're borrowing some fish from them. Give some of those maybe riskier fish to them. They're stoked to have them. They've been eating them forever, and for whatever reason, they're a little bit less likely to get ciguatera than we are, and they are so excited to get those fish. Now, you may be wondering, is there any test for ciguatera? Well, there isn't. The only way to tell if there's ciguatera in a fish or not is to eat it. And every now and then, you get a client, you get a best friend, somebody over there, and they shoot a trophy. It's their first black grouper, it's their first 15-pound hog, whatever it is, and they really want to eat it. Now, there's only one way to test for this. Eat a little portion, and don't feed it to your entire extended family. Have a small piece, you, your friend, 1 or 2 of you. Don't go make a feast for all of your friends and neighbors. Eat a small piece, wait 24 hours, see how you feel before committing to feed that to your friends and family. Last but not least, guys, the Bahamas has been hit extremely hard lately, especially the northern islands. They got nailed by Hurricane Dorian, and then the coronavirus happened directly during their peak of their season. So guys, if you have the money to get over there, help the local economy. I know you want to barbecue on the back of your boats, but take your fish, go to the local restaurant, hire a local guide, try and give some of your money back and keep it in the local community there. Guys, if you have any plans to go to the Bahamas this summer, let me know down in the comments below which island you're going to. Unfortunately, I'll be missing most of the season this year. I'll be over here in Hawaii making videos. Don't forget to enter our giveaway for a brand new Predator Roller by subscribing to my channel, leaving a comment below, and subscribing to the Headhunter Spearfishing channel. I'll put a link to his channel below and details for the competition. If you haven't already, like this video, and thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time right here on Ryan Myers Expeditions.